Hi, I'm Patricia Samaniego, fashion designer and founder of Oud Fashion Studio based out of the Los Angeles area. So these are the supplies you'll need to render fashion drawings. This is a total option, you don't need it, but if you have it, it works out great. It's just a light tracer. You'll need a skin tone marker. They come in a variety of different shades. This one is called Buff. A pencil, a Sharpie, 5-point Sharpie, and a pilot pen if you have it. Tracing paper and sketchbook paper. Or you can also just use multi-purpose paper depending on what type of media you're using, but we're just going to keep it pretty basic and use multi-purpose paper, which is copy paper. So the first step into rendering a croquis is, once you've already determined and created a fashion template or a croquis that you want to use, I already have one made out that I like to use a lot. It just cuts down on the time and trying to figure out a whole new proportion, a whole new pose for the fashion figure. Mine's already done. So what I'm going to do is, I've already retraced it on a new sheet of paper. So I have a new one here, and this one I'll keep for further sketches so I don't ruin it. So I retraced it with pencil. Now you're going to take your Sharpie pen and retrace your croquis. Just go over all your lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can, I like to kind of skip a little bit and just freehand it. You don't need to dig your pen into the paper. Just go over and retrace it. And once you have all these lines retraced, you can actually erase all the pencil lines so that you don't have pencil lines on top of ink and then marker, and it just creates a real messy look, and sometimes the marker will bleed into the pencil and it's really hard to erase afterwards. So retrace the whole croquis. And if it doesn't turn out right the first time, you can put a tracing paper on top of it or another sheet of paper on top of it and just retrace it again until you get the right proportion. So if I've already retraced it, and now I'm going to take my eraser and erase all the pencil lines. And this is actually the first step into rendering a fashion croquis by putting in the skin tone. Now you want to determine, based on the way the fashion croquis is standing, you want to determine where the light source is coming from. So if the light is coming from this way, you want to have the darker shadow on the outside. So I'm going to use Buff. So you want to go through your entire croquis and using your marker and color it all the way in. If you plan on putting clothing on it or just establishing the croquis itself, right now I'm just going to do the whole thing in nude. I'm not going to put any clothing on it. So I'm just going to go through and just put all the color into her skin, all the way down to her feet and her knees. You want to fill it in long strokes, because you're actually going to go through it again once it dries. The marker soaks into the paper really quickly, so you want to do long strokes. That way it doesn't look like a children's drawing. Okay, so once it dries, the light source is coming in this way, so the outside of her leg is going to look a little bit darker, and you also want to determine and kind of give her a little bit of dimension. So you kind of want to put like where her knees are. She's darker on this side. Okay, and all the way down, and then you want to give her a little bit of bone structure, and then her collarbone. So the more you go over the sketch on the paper, the darker it's going to get. So you have to plan out where you want these, where you want to define the body parts. And it's always going to be around the same parts. Here's the elbow, the shoulder, the hip, and the foot. And here's her ankle, and her toes are down here. There's part of her arm and then her hand. Now, I wouldn't worry about putting all the details in the hands yet when you're first starting with a basic fashion figure. Okay. And there it is. And the deeper you go and the more layers you put on it, the darker it will get. And that's rendering a fashion drawing.